Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show. We are speaking to the future today. One thing I love about just podcasting in general is I got to meet people from all over the country and all over the world, learning about experiences, beliefs, businesses that I just didn't even know about because I get to meet a wider range of people. So I love that. Today, and I practiced this name before, but you're going to have to forgive me. I'll let him say it after I say it. So you can just, you can test me on it. His name is Jeroen Corthout. Corthout. Go for it. Say it properly for us.
No, that was good. That was good.
Oh, okay. You're being generous. Awesome. So Jeroen, he actually is the co-founder and CEO of a company called Sales Flare. Now, if you're in the sales space and you have a lot of clientele that you need to manage or customers, there's a thing called a CRM. Now, the thing about CRM is used effectively and properly, it's a fantastic tool. If you don't know how to use it or you only use it 50% of the time, it's pretty much a useless tool. I don't know if it's useless. I'll let him say exactly the percentage, but
yeah.
It's not as effective for sure. And one thing that most salespeople struggle with, myself included, is yes, this is maybe a great system, but it's way easier just to close a piece of business than it is to try and get all this thing filled out to get the piece of business closed. Like all the paperwork is what most salespeople detest. They just don't want to do the paperwork side of it. And so what's unique about Salesforce and kind of the tagline for it is it's a CRM that fills itself out. So I'm gonna let him describe that in a more detail here and how he got to the point why he created this new system and co-founded a CRM system that was going to fill itself out. But that's basically what's going on here. I'm excited, and we're going to learn some crazy, awesome things about business, not just business in America, because there's some universal, but there's also things that are unique to every place you do business. So I'm excited to hear that. So yeah, thank you, Jeroen, for coming on and share with us kind of your history, your story, and how you got to where you are today and where you headed.
Yeah. What you said about CRMs becoming useless if they're not used, even I would say if you don't even use it 70 to 80% of what the way you should use it, they always become useless. But let me start my story. Maybe when I was around 15, 16 years old. Actually, it started when I was like 13, 14. Started building these websites. Like the internet was coming up. I started building websites on GeoCities first. I don't know whether you're that old, but is this kind of sites where you drag some stuff on there. Well, I was not dragging, I think. Yeah. But anyways, very basic, stupid sites with some animations and a counter at the bottom. It was very easy to make, but it was fun. Like you could build stuff on the internet. There was a bit of creativity to it. But then when I discovered HTML and Flash, this is a long time ago. So imagine 20 years ago. That was just awesome. I always liked building stuff. When I was a kid, I liked to do like, I don't know how to say in English, bricolage. Is that
collage? Yeah, collage.
Yeah. You build all kinds of stuff. I would build camps in the woods. I grew up in Belgium. I'm in Belgium now. I was born in the US 35 years ago. From Belgian parents, but we moved back at some point, and we lived in a very nice small town in Flanders, where they speak Dutch in Belgium. middle of the woods. I always would build camps, play outside, create stuff inside. When we had a computer, I started doing stuff on that. At first, my dad always had to be involved, at some point, I would tell my dad how stuff worked. But at some point, I discovered building websites, and that was just so cool. It's sort of design coming together with you sort of realize a thing for people, and a lot of people didn't have websites back then. Still today, a lot of people don't have websites, but back then, really, it wasn't very common. So I started building those. I built a lot with Flash. You could animate things pretty nicely, and so things could move in all kinds of directions without the need for what we have today in HTML5. Nowadays, Flash is a bit banned everywhere because it uses a lot of processor and all that. But back then, it was still pretty popular. And my dream was to start a business on that. So I sort of had a business at that point, but I wanted to have an actual business. So I'm going to start my own company. And when I went to look for studies, I went to university, actually my first thought was to do computer engineering. But then I looked there, and they had this open day, and they all seemed a bit nerdy, these guys. And they had all these installations that I was like, oh no, this is not practically useful. I don't see the point of this. And it sort of made that I thought I'm gonna do engineering, but not computer engineering. I ended up doing electronical engineering, did a minor in business management because that always attracted me. At that same time, I was basically selling cell phones. I would often buy cell phones either in the UK or in Germany, and then I would resell them in Belgium and make a nice markup on that. And then I studied biomedical engineering because I basically had the choice in electronical engineering between doing stuff with telecom, like cell phones and stuff, energy, like the energy companies, or microcircuits, or biomedical, which seemed much more interesting. It sort of broadened my knowledge and seemed also more impactful. So I did that for a few years. Then I went applying for jobs, and none of the jobs really appealed to me, all these engineering jobs, because I would be detached from customers, and that's what I mostly hated. I would be building stuff behind a computer, but I never ever talked to anyone. I would hear that through colleagues. So when I got fed up with applying for jobs, I went for business school. And that was a great experience because it opened up basically my possibilities to all kinds of other fields, because from engineering through business school, I ended up in marketing, which otherwise would never have been possible. Because of my background in biomedical engineering, I went for health marketing, and I chose because I knew I wanted to start my own company at some point, but I was a bit afraid that I didn't have the right background for it yet. I didn't know how companies worked yet and all that. I went for a product manager job in a pharma company because I figured it was sort of like having your own business, but then within a big company, because you're responsible for some products, putting them in the market and all that. It was a slightly disappointing experience in the sense that I did not have a lot of autonomy. It was extremely limited, also because I was in the Belgian subsidiary, above which you had the European level, and then above that you had the global level, and things tended to trickle down a lot in terms of how you had to do stuff. I was at a big company called Baxter. And I hated it so much that after, I think, a few months, I was already thinking, what else am I going to do with my life? After about 6 months, I had decided that I was going to start. I was back sort of thinking about websites because I was the only person in the marketing department at Baxter in Belgium that knew something about websites. And I figured, I could, like, these pharma companies have no idea. I know sort of how they work now. I thought, I've been in one. I know how it works. So I could sort of have a digital agency for pharma companies. And then I went to have dinner with a guy that I knew was doing something in that space. And he said, "Oh, you don't have any experience. Nobody's going to buy from you, but you can come work for us and we'll teach you everything I know, and then you can see what you want to do." And I actually joined that company, got a lot of responsibility for quite a while. I was the youngest account manager there, selling big projects to pharma companies, always between a few times 10,000 euros up till, I think my biggest project was 500,000 or so that I sold. Responsible for selling those and delivering and all that, which was cool for a while. Being a consultant, you see a lot of different companies, which makes that you get a bit of insight in how you like things to work and how you don't like things to work. I was actually internal at 2 companies for a while, or 3. And there were some huge differences in the way culture can define how things work, but also how you feel really on a day-to-day basis. In one of the companies, I really felt horrible, and I will never forget that, why that was. And I'm grateful that I sort of have that experience now to carry with me into my own businesses. But it was a painful experience, I must say. But I always knew that I wanted to go out and start my own business. So at some point I went part-time at the consultancy where I was working. I enrolled in the Founder Institute, which at that point was sort of the best thing I could do. The thing is, like many people out there, I wanted to start something, but I didn't know what, and there wasn't like, I just kept like going in circles, you know. As they say, I was a entrepreneur, and always dreaming, but never doing anything. And then I saw the Founder Institute, and basically what they said was like, when you enroll and you go through the program, you have a company, otherwise you cannot graduate. And I thought, that's cool. I will be pushed into this thing, and in the end I will have a company. So I did that, and I went through the whole thing and graduated. Now, that company did not really have a proper business model, nor was it validated. Like that there was a need to sell something to people, which was sort of a mistake. But at least it sort of got me started. After that, I joined a startup weekend. When this company failed, I joined the startup weekend. We won that startup weekend, started a company there. Then someone I met in the Founder Institute, who was starting another company, asked like, hey, would you like to join us to Vegas? There's a big conference there, and we're gonna sell the stuff in my company, and we need a sales guy, so if you want to join. And I said, sure. I mean, I could take a few days off and go to Vegas. So we did that. It was a great success. We had a lot of leads. And then that was my current co-founder. And he asked, like, do you want to then join to work on my company, do sales and marketing? And then I had all these different things. So at some point, I remember I took my my notebook and started writing down like all the stuff I was doing, to then think what I was going to scratch off, what I was going to stop doing. And I decided to go with joining my current co-founder and work on that. And then we had this issue where this is where Salesflare starts coming. we had this issue where we had all these leads from this conference, and I had been working in that consultancy with Salesforce for a long while, and that was really horrible. I mean, it's not just that it's not so easy to use, and that in many ways it's slow, and the interface doesn't seem like it's really built for the end user. It's more like something you sell to a corporate, and they have consultants building a thing in that, but it doesn't seem like there's a huge gap with the normal stuff you would use on your phone. Plus, it didn't really help me organize my sales, which me as a naive person starting with CRM systems, I thought that was what it was supposed to do. So then when we were following up all these leads, I know Salesforce is not gonna solve it. Tried a lot of other things, and actually all of those sort of failed on us. And that was due to an issue that I had seen in many sales meetings in consultancy also before, that the system just fails if it's not filled out. And filling out a CRM is something that nobody likes to do. The only moment that a CRM is properly filled out by salespeople is when they want to tell their manager, like, I might not be selling very well, but look, I filled out the CRM so perfectly, you know? And as soon as they start selling well, that just totally disappears. Then the conversation becomes like, what would you rather like me to do? Would you like me to sell or fill out a CRM? And what we saw when we were like filling out these systems is that we were very often just doing something in one system, like sending an email or having a meeting or calling or so, and then we would go in the CRM and just state that we had done that. So it felt like we were always sort of documenting something that we did somewhere else, that we were always like duplicating information in a certain way. And that's when the spark came. Then we said, oh, what if we would like build a system that connects with all these others, pulls the data together of people you're in contact with, and all the things you've done with them, their information. So specifically like who did you email with, who did you have meetings with, what's their email signature, pull in that data, which meetings did you exchange, how often are you in touch, what's your sort of your connection strength then, when did you have a meeting, what was the meeting about, when did you call, how long did that call take, was it a missed call, was it an outgoing call, whatever, all these kind of things. What's more information about that company in a company database that we can pull in information from. Do we find these people on social media? What else? Well, from the start, we also thought about integrating email tracking and web tracking very closely so that you could actually follow the person through all the touch points you had with them without having to do a lot of work. So then that was our initial idea. We thought about selling this to larger companies because I had seen that they had issues with things like Salesforce. So we figured we're going to build a sales platform, and it's going to connect with Salesforce, and then the salespeople have something they can work with. But still, everything comes centrally in Salesforce, which is what the big companies want. And we tried to sell that, but virtually everyone at these big companies said, yes, we do have a problem with Salesforce. Our salespeople don't like to use it. That's true, but they didn't like the solution we gave because they wanted to fix Salesforce. They didn't want to buy another system. And they definitely didn't want to synchronize two systems with each other. They didn't trust that was going to happen in the right ways. So we were sort of stuck there until we figured that all the companies around us, and we were in a startup incubator already at that point, they needed something like this as well. And then we said, okay, then we make this a CRM for small and medium-sized businesses. something more practical, which also matches much better because in big companies, it's management building something to internally organize a company, let's say, and they have consultants build the whole system. While in small companies, people are actually looking for stuff that works. Like you get something, it works, and people can work with it. There's a totally different focus in what kind of software people like. And then this is now for 6.5 years almost that we do this. We've been building this up every day to now more than 2,000 companies using our software, building out features every month, churning out blog articles and all this kind of stuff, and building a team, and it's going well. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, I have some questions here because I took a lot of notes. Just some things I just want to highlight really quick. I think a lot of people are unaware that those, and this is just a normal part of everyday life, unfortunately, but a lot of people, and this is across the world, right? It's not just America that people struggle with this. I think it's a lot of human nature, but there's a point in your life, early age in your life, and for him it was maybe 12, 13, 14 years old. A lot of people, it's right around there, between 10 and 15, where you actually have your dream. You fall in love with something. In this case, he started using like crazy antiquated old internet software that was like it was brand new when he was using it. So it's not like now it's ancient, but technology, it goes faster than anything else on our planet right now. So right now it's ancient, but when it first came out, that's what it was. It was the newest, hottest thing. And that's when he fell in love with this idea of creating. I think most people, in one form or another, doesn't matter what it is, there's a point in your life where you fall in love with creating, and then your mode of creation is different, right? So some people, they love to create in art. Some people love to create in singing. Some people love to create in dancing. Some people love to create in architecture or engineering or in relationships or speaking. Like we all have this dream of creation and of something else. And then over the course of our life, for whatever the reason being, and you all have your own story of where you fell out of creation and you started reacting. You said, you know what, maybe I'll just fill a cog in somebody else's creation rather than be my own creator. We all go through that experience. When he went through that, I mean, you guys heard him just talk about it, where he went from starting his online thing, having a dream, deciding, I'll go to college, not knowing what to study. It was just too many options. And finally, over the course of time, it got whittled down back to the same or very similar objective of, look, there's a need. I'm a creator. I want to go create a solution. And now he's back to creating, back to writing code, back to those things that he fell in love with at 13, 14 years old. So my question for you as a listener here is, what did you fall in love with that was a creation activity? What were you enthralled with? You would lose sleep over, you'd stay up late, you'd hide underneath your blanket with a flashlight to create this thing that the world somehow told you was bad or wrong. You should have been sleeping. You shouldn't do that. You're never going to make any money. We're not going to hire you because you don't have enough experience, whatever, right? We all have these people in our lives, these naysayers that will basically put us in our quote unquote place and tear us down. But at some point you had a dream of creation. You fell in love with creating something. What was it? Stop your car, whatever you're doing, and write this down. Just take a note. Even if you're driving, go to your notepad and voice text this. Say, hey, this is what I fell in love with creating at this age, and fall in love with it again. Just see it, go re-examine it, see if it's something you could do again. But I think learning to become a creator is the greatest gift that we can give ourselves, and the greatest gift somebody else can give us is the confidence that we can become that creator. So I love that you shared that aspect of your story and went from here all the way through, kind of got lost along the way, as we all do, get lost in our journey, and then found yourself again and said, no, I'm going to be a creator, and you created solutions. I love that.
Yeah, and actually, to what you said, I personally love creation on a lot of levels. Like you mentioned, singing, for instance, I love singing. I love engineering. My mom is an architect. I'd always found that amazing. Also, when we built this apartment here, that was great. I love creating lots of different things, but specifically creating software is something I'm also good at. And that helps. It brings together a bunch of my skills. I know how software works. I've been doing this kind of stuff since like 20 years. Then I studied some stuff related to it. Quite technical. I also like to talk to people. We build B2B software. I like to, and the sales aspect. I used to do sales, and then marketing it. I've done marketing. So it's not only what you in maybe a large amount of things you like to create, what you love there, but it's also partly about what are you good at. Because then you can really make a difference, and you can get paid for it.
Absolutely.
That's also good, of course, to get paid.
Yeah, no. Well, one of the notes that I made here is you had an ability because of your willingness to go and have all of these experiences. So there's so many people who are paralyzed by the chance of failure, or what if I don't like it? What if I don't succeed? And so they don't go get experiences. And you are willing to continue to have experiences, continue to put yourself in learning situations. I wrote down as far as your 7 human basic needs, and maybe, I mean, you might know these already, what they are for you, but I just jotted down, you're somebody who likes growth. Like, you're going to seek out growth. So growth is like a core value of Jeroen's, where he wants to grow. He wants to be a contributor. Contribution's important to him. And then also interaction. He could have had growth, personal growth. He could have had contribution, created something incredible for the world, but he didn't like the idea of not being able to see the end user, to be able to see somebody's light in their eyes, like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. He didn't want to be the guy in the back room plugging in numbers. He wanted to be on the front lines and interacting. And those are 3 very specific personality traits that are for him. But guess what? He can't be who he is unless there's somebody fulfilling on the back end and doing those things that isn't on the front lines, right? So we all need different, like, just because you are not like him doesn't mean that you're bad or wrong. You just have different things that are important to you, and that's okay. Another thing is you had all these experiences and you combined them. And I think that's a sign of a really great creator. In my life, it's been true for me, and I've seen it in others. The best creators are the people who are willing to experience a lot, and then they pull, as you said, well, find out what you're good at, right? But if he didn't have the experience of all these other things he's creating in, it would limit his ability to be good and fully express himself in the coding and the software creation. And so learning how to have a lot of experiences and then pull aspects of those different businesses into your main thing, that's a skill, and it's something that I think should be developed. For me, I have this conversation because I teach people how money works. I love it. It gets the juices going. I'm sitting down with a client. Now, if you know my story, the reason I teach people how money works is because when I studied sociology, so in my college, I went to psychology, I went to neuropsychology, then I studied biochemistry, and then I studied sociology. And the reason I studied all these things is because I wanted to help people have better relationships, not have anxiety, depression, suicide, domestic violence, divorce, child abuse, right? I wanted to help people in these situations. And so my field of study and my mind is very psychological, sociological, like chemistry, our meta thinking, our what do they call it? What do they call that? The baby genetics, epigenetics, that's what it's called. So epigenetics of how we're formed, how we're impacted from generations ago, quantum physics, like that's how my mind operates. Well, what I found is people who have a higher income in life, like higher income households, they have less of these issues. And when they do have these issues, that's anxiety, depression, suicide, abuse, addiction, divorce, they have the resources to get the help they need. Somebody in a lower income household doesn't have the resources. And so I'm good at communication. I'm good at sales. I'm okay at money, right? I'm not great at money, but I had a passion for helping this demographic. So what I did is I married these two very opposite worlds, the technical, numbers, like nerdy side. He said he went into the computer thing. He's like, oh, these people are nerds, right? I feel the same way about like a traditional financial advisor. All they talk about is numbers and spreadsheets and pivot charts and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool, but you're not helping somebody psychologically at all. You're not connecting with them. So I took the connection psychology side of a human, and I married it with the financial side of a human, and that's where I find my success, and it's very unique. There's tons of people talk about money on the spiritual and energy side. There's a lot of people who talk about the actual number side of money. There's very few people who can help you with both. Okay, so it's in the combining of these multiple industries where you can find something amazing, and that's what he was able to do because he went and got the experience and found out what people hated with their softwares, and said, hey, what if we create a solution to take all these different touch points and combine them into one software, right? So I want you to think about that in your own life. Like, what could that do? I'd love for you to speak to that. Are you conscious when you're doing that? Hey, this I saw this in this other industry. I wonder if we could pull that in and make it work in ours. Have you thought that consciously before, or is that all subconscious for you?
I sometimes think that, yeah. I like to seek out different fields. So even when I read a lot of books, right? And the way I like to organize myself there is when I hear people recommend books, I put them in Goodreads, I make a list, and I don't limit myself to a specific topic or so. And actually, then when I go, and that's every time I go through 5 books, I will buy a new set of 5 books, and then I go through the Goodreads list, my want to read list, and I go through there and I'm like, okay, what's interesting here? Read reviews, understand very well whether that's actually something I'm gonna love to read. But also I balance the set of things. So for instance, this time I think I bought 1 book about economics, 1 book about is the one with Edward Snowden. It's more of a, I don't know how to place it, sort of society's problems or whatever. And 1 about stoicism, 1 about, I don't remember. In any case, as broad as possible, so that from all these different fields, you can pick up things and more sort of holistically form yourself, get more inspiration from different spots. While in the past, actually, I would sometimes maybe my reading would be very specific. For instance, let's say I would pick SaaS companies and only read about SaaS companies. It gets boring quickly. It also gets less exciting. The inspiration is not very varied. It always comes from the same space. It's often like the stuff that everybody does. While if you go outside of there, you can make it so much more rich, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the key, is being able to combine industries. That's where most of creation is innovation, right? Innovation creation is taking multiple things that other people have already created often and combining them into your own creation. Like a loaf of bread is really just like 7 or 8 different elements that you change their form. It's all wheat, right? But you could make a loaf of bread, you could make a tortilla, you could make cold cereal, you could make a lot of different stuff with all similar ingredients, cake, cupcakes, donuts, right? But it's just the different levels and the different amounts create all these plethora of different things. And it's the same thing in look, in life and in business is you guys think of yourself as a chef or a cook or something where you are combining different elements and you're creating your own unique thing. And it could be the same dish, right? It could be the same pie or cake, but it tastes different because it's your unique way, right? You created it your unique way. It's a different type of moisture. It's a different level of creation. So I think just understanding that from a perspective of, hey, what do I want to accomplish in life? Maybe it's parenting, right? Maybe you take all these different things from people who've been parenting and you're like, hey, I'm going to raise my kid this way. I mean, guess what? None of us know whether how we raise our kids is a good thing or a bad thing until they get older. And then we're like, well, we probably screwed up, but it's done now, right? Yeah. Could have done that better. Hindsight's 2020. Specifically on websites, though, I heard you mention this. A lot of people don't have them. I'm curious, who do you think should have a website? I know I don't use the should word very often because I think it's a more command form and it doesn't always produce good feelings inside of people. But like, if you were to recommend, hey, these people, almost everybody in these categories could benefit from having their own website, and then there's this group of people, yeah, you probably don't need one. How would you make that separation?
It's not something I often think about. This was the past, let's say. I also said a lot of people don't have websites, and this was in 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, I think most people do. It's basically your business card, and if people cannot find you on the internet, you sort of don't exist, right? So I would recommend it to most businesses, at least. I don't immediately see any type of business that I wouldn't want to be able to check out on the internet. If we're thinking about people, not necessarily, I would say, unless you're building a personal brand or you're a business yourself or something, then it could make sense. But otherwise, I don't have a website, for instance, for myself.
Okay. Yeah, so it's interesting.
I have a LinkedIn profile, so
that's good. Like LinkedIn owns your data. Then that's good. Do you at least own your own URL? I talk. The reason I asked is I talked to a lot of people in the tech space, and just about everybody said you should at least go buy your name, like, because you just never know when you're going to need it, when you're going to want it. You should at least go buy your own URL if it's open. Go purchase it. It's $12 a year or whatever on Google. But is that a similar recommendation? Do you think that everybody should own their name online, or is it just saying it's whatever? If you never, because you just never know if you're going to intend to do something like that.
I don't own my own name right now. I should probably buy it before this episode goes live.
Yeah. I don't know. Literally, I was up. So this is crazy. So I work in various industries, and I was just Googling like what domains are open, and it's incredible how many domains that nobody's purchased. So late in the night or early in the morning, I'm not sure which one, but I woke up and I was like, I need to buy a bunch of domains. So I sat in my bed and I searched out like 20 different domains that like are specific to my industry, that if somebody Googles this question, I want my website to show up because it's literally the URL of my website and there's relevant content there. Yeah, and I dropped like $300 on just domains because I was like, I just want to, I want this real estate. That's what people don't understand. Like, these domains, they're real estate. There's people who literally buy domains, put a little website, get a little bit of traffic, increase the value of that domain, and they'll just sell the traffic to that domain. Like, that is some people's. I've had him on this podcast, Chris Miles. You can go back and listen to him. But like, that is their profession. They make tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year buying a domain, building traffic to it, selling it, buying a domain, building traffic to it, sell it. And that's people's entire careers, some people. So anyway, it's just a fascinating side note that I thought I'd touch on there.
No, you're right. I'm actually buying my domain name as we speak.
Oh, good. I love it. No, that's the thing though. I think like, create action, do it fast, don't wait. Because you just never know. Like, what does it mean when somebody else has your name? I have my company name, right? Fuel Your Legacy. I have Fueling Your Legacy. but GoDaddy owns Fuel Your Legacy. And, and GoDaddy's so freaking, I moved all my stuff from GoDaddy, not to give them any negative press, but here's the deal. Their negotiating thing is they have a negotiating service. So you got to pay like $70 so they can negotiate on your behalf, but they're negotiating with themselves because themselves are the people who own the name.
Yeah.
They just own the name. And so then it's like, well, okay, well, just tell me a price. Like, how much is this worth? Oh, we want you to put in an offer first. I'm like, okay, so I put in an offer and they're like, that's not high enough. Well, tell me what's high enough, right? Like, tell me what you want. It's the worst. They just want to see how high you'll offer before they say, yeah, we'll accept that price. So needless to say, I do not own Fuel Your Legacy right now. I own Fuel Your Legacy Show. I own Fueling Your Legacy. I own Fuel Your Legacy Podcast. I own Fuel Your Legacy Today. I own a lot of them, but that one specific one I don't own yet. I haven't decided that it's worth tens of thousands of dollars to go buy from somebody who literally has no need for it other than because they know I want it.
I think it's probably not really worth it.
Yeah, so far
it's for your podcast now.
Yeah, I mean, if it ever becomes worth it, I'll do it. But once I found out what sham they were running, I was like, sorry, I'm moving. So I moved all my domains over to Google. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. So I'm curious, with something you mentioned, I think was really important and kind of got glossed over. But you mentioned how I'm not going to have enough time to talk about everything I want to talk about. Okay, we're going here. And this is the problem with me. I talk too much. So culture, you mentioned how culture is king. You were in an environment, you didn't like the culture. It was very painful. You knew that you didn't like it. And now you learned on how to create a better culture in your new company, right? So I think this is a concept and a valuable conversation to have, again, across all platforms. It doesn't matter if you are working as an employee, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a child, a husband, a wife, a grandparent, like no matter where you're at in life, in a religious organization, a nonprofit organization, politics, no matter where you're at, you have influence. Whether you believe it or not, you still do. You have influence and you're contributing to a culture. And what are like the key tells to say, hey, this is organizational, this is policy, this is whatever, and then this is culture? How would you separate the two so people can start saying, okay, this is a cultural thing, this is something else. How do we fix the culture? We still need the reports, we still need all the actions to be happening, but how do we fix a culture while still maintaining standards?
Yeah, so I think you asked a few questions here. What's the difference between policies? I bought my domain name in the meantime.
There we go. Love it.
Yeah. So culture is everything that is in between all these things. So it's not written down as a policy, but it's just the way we do it. You know, it's just the way we think about it as a group. Sort of the things we set. It's the way we talk to each other, the way we handle work, the way, that's all culture. And it's extremely important because most things in a company you will not define. Plus, even if you define things, everything that surrounds it will have an impact on it. So even if you make a rule, how do we handle the rule? That's culture again. So, and to speak to cultures, I really hate it. I remember working in a company where it was the only time in my life that I had, apart from now, a very nice home office, but that I had my own cubicle. I had a really big office actually. It was comfortable. I could close the door and all that. But when I would come out of that office and I would walk through the hallways, it was always unclear whether I had to say hi to people or not say hi to people, because when I did, they would look at me like, who is this guy? Because I was a consultant there. And if I didn't, they would look at me like, okay, you're unfriendly. So there was this very double thing going on. Then there were a lot of things that were sort of management wouldn't respect the people working for them, often treading on the ground of the people working for them and just making them feel like shit. Lunch was also very weird, where we would basically all sit at a table. It was very quiet. And then I would try to get a conversation going, which would always die down at some point. Super weird. That's when I really felt horrible. And then in another pharma company where I worked, like people would always super open, and we might have had a bit too many meetings about stuff because everybody wanted to discuss everything with everyone. But at least, everybody was communicating, what people wanted, everybody's position. So I figured from that communication is really the most important thing when it comes to culture. And what we try to do at Salesflare is to have really everyone. First of all, we don't hire people who are bad at communicating. Even when it comes to developers, if they cannot communicate, they are useless. Because first of all, everybody needs to be on the same line, and you can't if you're not communicating. Plus, we put developers also in a sort of support hero role where they also help customers, and it's quite annoying if they cannot communicate with customers. But more than that, we try to do it in such a way that is very open, so that we can actually discuss issues, and issues don't disappear somewhere because we feel that they cannot be discussed. It's sort of like in the book, and it was a great book I read. It's called Radical Candor. I forgot the author of the book. She explains how you build strong relationships and then open up the communication lines. And one of the things that's very important just there is actively seeking out feedback and everybody's opinion. But then even more important than that is doing something with it. When you get this, that people actually feel that it makes a difference. You don't shove it under any, a mat. I don't know what you shove it under in English.
You got it.
Yeah. But you respect it. It's integrated into something, or you start doing something, or you have a discussion about it and you argument why it's a bad idea, but not to put it aside at any point. And then you can create a culture in a group where nothing really explodes at any point. And where communication flows easily through the company, so that also no mishaps happen because of miscommunication.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, in my experience, people will leave a business because they say it's because of people. I really think it's because of culture. I think it comes down to a cultural thing, and that's in everything. That's in your family, guys. That is in every aspect of your life. You are either choosing to be in or out of a specific group of individuals or connections due to the culture in that and what cultures match. And my perspective is neither one is good or bad. It just is. And a lack of recognition of what it is going to harm you long term. And so just recognize, hey, what culture do you want in your life? Like he decided, hey, I want this type of culture. I'm leaving this company because I don't like the culture. Right? Does that mean the company's bad, it's going to fail, unsuccessful? Not necessarily. Maybe everybody there, they figured out that culture. But if you are not part of that culture, then you need to go find somewhere where you're going to thrive. I honestly believe that. We're gonna run out of time here, so we're going to get to the last question. This is my favorite question of the podcast, and it really comes down to what legacy are you building? So if we're going to pretend that you've died and you get to come back and view kind of your great grandchildren. So 6 generations from now, they're sitting around a table discussing with themselves your life, what it meant, the impact you had on society. what do you want them to be saying about your legacy 6 generations from now?
I honestly don't. I sometimes think about it, but I didn't come to any big conclusion. But right now, I sort of feel like what I like to do is help small businesses be successful in their client relationships, because a lot of these things go wrong because of bad organization. Because of not knowing what was discussed last with a person, what this person finds important, where something is in which stage, this kind of stuff. Because it's the small businesses in the world that are going to bring the innovation, that are going to create the things that are going to get us out of many of the bad situations that we're in. They're gonna save the world, let's say. So I'm trying to save the small businesses and help them with that. And I think that's sort of at this point in my life where I see my legacy.
Awesome. I love that, guys. And literally everything we talked about today, I have so many more notes that I want to talk about, but we just ran out of time. So maybe we'll have to have them on again, because this is just incredible. Like when you get to talk to people who are successful, who have had experience, and you learn from them, and then you say, okay, how can I apply those principles into my life? That's the beauty of life, is hearing other people, learning from other people, and saying, how can I apply this conversation into our life? So thank you so much, Jeroen, for taking your time. Have a wonderful evening over there in Belgium. Hopefully the weather's not too cold yet. It's getting cold over here.
It's quite good now. Yeah, it's even a bit sunny. It's the weather is very weird.
It's going to be cloudy today. I'm going golfing. Golfing next, but super excited. Hey, hope you have a wonderful day. And remember, Fuel Your Legacy audience. Take the chance. I'm going to get this book, Radical Candor. Candor is one of my number one. It is probably my number one core value. So I've never heard of this book, but I'm going to go read it. Maybe I can be better at being candorful and with still a little bit more love. So thank you so much for recommending that. Have a wonderful evening. We'll catch you guys next time on Fuel Your Legacy. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.